Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you a review of the Blue Yeti microphone, and later on I'm also going to show you how to make your voice better using free software. So stick around if you want to know more about that. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr, and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. Now I've had the Blue Yeti for pretty much almost a decade at this point, and it's still a very good microphone in its price range and also in terms of quality. But as you can see here, I have the microphone in front of me here. Now one very important thing I want to note from the beginning is that you have to talk in front of the microphone, not on top. That is very important because in this case, in this microphone, talking on top won't work. Even if you put it on a different mode, I'll show you later what that means. You have to in any case talk in front of it, never on top, like a lot of other microphones. So keep it in front of you. Then here we have our first button here. Make sure that this is always on. This is the mute button, and when it's flickering, it actually means it's on mute. So do always make sure that this light is not flickering, but that it's always on. Now down here we actually have a headphone switch that you can turn from one side to the other. It's basically the volume of your voice and how you hear it in your headphones. Because basically if you go underneath here, you can see that there's also an audio jack. So you can actually put in a headphone directly with an audio jack cable. Just make sure it's the right size. And so you can directly hear yourself speak while you plug it into the microphone. And actually so basically hear your own voice live throughout the microphone directly in your headphones. And there's pretty much no latency at all. Now because this microphone released in circa 2009, it actually works through micro USB. So do make sure that you have the right cable, also in order to put it directly into your laptop, computer or whatever you're using it for. So do keep that in mind, it works with a micro USB. And underneath here you can see a part where you can screw the microphone onto a, for example, boom arm, what I have. So basically I have here, so you can see a screw, it's a golden screw. It's basically a converter, which allows me to basically plug in the microphone directly on top of that boom arm, so I can attach it to it. This screw should be included. Otherwise you can also pretty easily find it online. Now going to the back here, as you can see here, the first switch is going to be the gain. Do make sure that this gain button is pretty much all the way down. Because I've noticed that with the Blue Yeti it's better to actually boost the volume later on in the software, which is also something I'm going to show you, rather than putting this gain up too much, because you're going to hear the room way too much, and I think it's a bit more sensitive than other microphones, so you're going to hear the room pretty quickly and any other different noises that might be in your environment. And so that's why I definitely advise you to put the gain quite low, as I said, almost all the way down. Now as you can see down here, we have the different modes, so the modes I was talking about earlier. I always have it on Cardioid mode, which I think you would also probably use in most situations, because this is like everything from doing the voiceovers like I'm doing right now to anything like a podcast, or even vocals and instruments, in case you're making music, which is also something you can see on this sheet right here. Now there's a sheet of paper that actually comes with the Blue Yeti when you buy it. Now in case you don't have it, you can see it on the screen right here, so do keep these different modes in mind. So I explained Cardioid already, then the first one as you can see is stereo. This is your standard stereo where it comes from both sides, a bit less from the back as you can see, but from the fronts and from the sides is pretty strong. This is also of course everything related to music, as you would mix music and actually master it in stereo so that it actually comes out hearing it from both sides. So this is definitely something I would advise you musically to do. Then as you can see down there you have Omnidirectional. This is something for like conference calls or any other event really where you need the sound to come from all sides, basically picking up anything that could be a very faint sound or sound you want to record in general. The last one is Bidirectional. As you can see, it kind of speaks for itself. It's anything to do with like interviews where people are sitting in front of each other, basically having a conversation, and that you're able to talk into both sides of the microphone, once again in front and in the back. So that's what you use that mode for. But as I said, if you're just doing a voiceover like most people would, alone in your room for example, then just of course go for Cardioid, as I said earlier. There you go, so that covers the Blue Yeti microphone itself. Now I do have some accessories that help me quite a lot while recording with the Blue Yeti. Now the first one isn't really that important, but it's a foam. Basically it makes my voice slightly warmer, and I really like that. I can notice some difference. Now this is of course very optional, you don't have to do this. This is really for me, this is something as a personal preference. But just know that that option is out there if that also interests you. And do make sure that you take a pretty big foam in that case, because the Blue Yeti's microphone, as you can see, is pretty large. Then something I definitely advise you to have though is a pop filter. Now this is of course something that removes plosives, so any sounds, and so this is definitely important to have. Now make sure you never stick the pop filter to the microphone. Make sure there's some space in there. What I always advise is have like a finger away between the microphone and the pop filter, and then another finger away, or like half a finger away between you and the pop filter itself, so your mouth and the pop filter, so that you're like approximately 1.5 fingers to 2 fingers away from your microphone. Because as you might know or not know, if you're too close to the microphone you get boominess, your voice becomes too low, and if you're too far away from the microphone you're basically gonna hear the room, because you're so far away that you can hear different things in the room, and your voice has some more reverb to it, obviously some natural acoustics, reverb, and that's something else you don't want. So keep it around in the middle, as I said. You can also use the pinky to the thumb technique. That is also quite often just a really good distance from a microphone. Now I also have a boom arm because the Blue Yeti itself comes with a stand. Now that stand isn't that bad, but I would definitely just advise you to keep it at the beginning, and once you have the possibility to actually change, to actually upgrade if you will, you can take a boom arm, which is definitely something I advise. I have the Rode boom arm and I've bought this one maybe like 2-3 years after I bought the Blue Yeti, maybe even earlier, and I've had it all this time. So also I pretty much have this boom arm for like 8 years to a decade as well at this point. And same, it still holds up very well. I do have a review so that you have a more detailed explanation about the boom arm right up here in the right corner. But for now, basically going over the basics, I can actually go with the cable alongside with the boom arm, which is very useful. I also have there are also some Velcro pieces you can actually stick up so that the cord doesn't move that much. And of course the top end in the part where I can actually put on the screw and actually also screw on, of course, the Blue Yeti. Now the Blue Yeti itself is actually made from metal, so it's also a pretty strong material. It's also very nice, and as I said, you can use it with a stand at the beginning, but just make sure you watch out because they're pretty important so you don't hit your desk or make any sudden moves. I mean, these can also happen if you have a boom arm, but the vibrations are way stronger and you'll feel them way quicker if you still have a stand instead of a boom arm. So that's also something I quickly still wanted to mention there. So now I actually wanted to show you a software that makes your voice better. So this is Voicemeeter Banana, also software I've been using for quite a while. I do have a more detailed video once again up in the right corner here if you want to check that out. And so I'm quickly gonna mention here how to set it up. I will go over the basics right now and explain you as clear as possible. Now here, this is the hardware input one, but I renamed it to microphone. It's where I like to put my microphone, which is of course gonna be an input device. So if I click here, make sure this is a WDM. I'm gonna go for the Blue Yeti microphone. Then I'm actually gonna go right over here to A1. So as you can see this one right here, A1, this A1 here are connected. So just gonna click on here, and I'm actually gonna do a MME this time. So make sure it's MME. And then I'm gonna do a cable input. I'll explain to you in that video what that is. But basically you have to install it as well on your computer. But you can also do speakers. So the speakers is in case you want to hear yourself speak basically. So you want to hear your own voice and see how it progresses. And I'm just gonna go for this tutorial for the cable input. And also very important, what I also wanted to mention, make sure down here, if you go to the audio settings, right here, so make sure it's the sound output. As you can see right here, mine is on speakers right now. But in that case, you would the cable input as an output here. So make sure that you select that one in that case. If you actually want to play around with the cable input here. So that's something that's very important. I'll also show you later on how you do that in Discord and any other software really for that matter. But make sure already that here in the outputs, in the sound outputs of Windows, that you have the right one selected in that case. If you want to once again use, for example, cable input. But anyway, that's something I wanted to quickly mention because it's very important and I've had questions about that in the past. But now I'm going to focus on the microphone part here, obviously, because I want to make the voice better. Now, you're not going to hear this live because I'm actually using the OBS sound. So I am basically using my voice with OBS filters. I'm going to show you that in a second as well. But basically here, what you can do is actually take this part here. It works the same, by the way, if you do it in this input and in this input as well. Now here, it's actually going to be the lows. If you put it around here, it's going to be very low. So you don't want that. You want it to be maybe around here, towards here, something like this. So here's the highs. Say, make sure you don't put it too high. It's going to be pretty thin around here. So I actually want to kind of put it somewhere in the middle around here, I would say. Or if you want it a bit thinner, I guess you want it to be around here. But don't put it too much around here and not too much around here. That's definitely something I'd advise you. This, I wouldn't advise you for your voice because it's like an echo. So that's something I definitely wouldn't advise you to do. It doesn't sound good on the voice, except if you want to go for a pretty specific effect on your voice. You might actually just experiment with that if you want. But if you just want to put some better effects on your voice, just to generally stay around here, as I said. Then you can double click it to reset it if you want. Then when we're here in Discord, you want to go down here to the user settings. You want to go to voice and video right here. Now here you can see the input device. It's selected on the microphone here, the Blue Yeti, but we don't want that. In case you're using Voicemeeter, make sure that either Voicemeeter here selected, one of these two. You can also do the cable output in that case. Do make sure that at least something with Voicemeeter is selected as an input, because otherwise you and the people who are hearing your voice won't hear the difference, because you have to make sure that Voicemeter is first of all on, of course. It has to be running in the background at least. So you can actually go here and you make sure that this is on, and you can also minimize it obviously. But do make sure it's running, and also that you select one of these voice meters here or the cable input. Same for the output device, you can do speakers, but of course, in case once again you're using the cable input, you have to make sure that that one, the virtual audio cable here, make sure that that one is selected also as an output. So then there's one last software that you can actually use, which is OBS itself, as you can see. Now I do always use this software to record myself, my screen, but I also nowadays use it to actually use the filters. This is what they call it, the filters. We're basically putting the effects on my voice. So actually make my voice better and at the same time just record with the software that I'm actually actually using here. So I do want to mention first if you go to settings, we're actually going to go into the audio settings here, that you have to make sure that this is on 48 kHz stereo. Also make sure that the channels is on. Then here you just want to make sure it's speakers and your microphone, so the Blue Yeti microphone. And also in output and audio, you can just put, even though I don't all use them, make always sure that this is on 320. It's the best quality you can get. So if you really want to go for that, make sure it's on 320. And then at the end, make sure you click apply and then OK if you made any changes. And here as well, if I go to the three dots here of the microphone, so make sure it's the microphone I'm selecting. Go to advanced audio properties. I actually use some volume here, so I did a little bit of a dB boost. And here as well, you can see the channels. So the first channel here, as we saw earlier, is the desktop audio. And this is my microphone on channel 2, the track 2, if you will. And so here, if you go monitor and you do monitor and output, you can actually hear yourself talk, if that's something you want in this case for OBS. I'm just going to close this right here. And actually go to the most important part, which is going to be the filters. So I'm going to once again go to the three dots right here. I'm going to click on filters. And as you can see right here are all my active filters. You can actually add a new one if you do the little plus here, down here, and actually select one of these which are integrated. And actually also have some plugins. So in case you have a plugin, if for example you're using a DAW where you make music in, you have any other really audio related plugins from other software, you could potentially use them, so import them into OBS and actually use them within OBS as well. But in my case, as you can see, this is also an order that I definitely advise you to use. Yes, first of all, I put the gain, so this basically makes the gain a bit louder. As I said earlier, of course, because the Blue Yeti has a pretty low input gain, it's quite sensitive, so you have to make sure that it's quite low on the Blue Yeti, but yet a bit higher here in the software, as you can see. So I put it to like 350. Once again, it's for me, but you can do something else. And actually put an EQ within OBS here. The freeband equalizer is basically the EQ variant of what OBS has integrated. Now then here I also have an expander and a compressor. Basically make sure the sound is not too quiet, nor the sound is too loud, and actually limits those sounds. Limiter as well, as you can see here. And also lastly, have a video about that up here in the right corner about how to actually any microphone better, really, any sound in OBS. So do check that one out if you want to know more in detail about the other effects that are here available. Also anything from like a noise gate, which obviously can remove some background noise if needed. But there you go, that's also something I wanted to mention pretty briefly, because I know it's also quite important and also pretty useful to actually have a system that makes your voice better within the software that you can actually use to record for free, which is OBS obviously. But there you go guys, this was a review about the Blue Yeti and also some software to actually make the Blue Yeti sound better. I really try to mention as much as possible in relation to this microphone and also the software that can help it. Now if you have any questions, leave them down below. Please, if a like would be really nice. Subscribe would also be really nice. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.